This is the depraved dance of a murderer high on his crime. Deng Chol-majek had attacked a staff member from the asylum hotel where he was being housed. Outside he celebrated, while in the background police and paramedics rushed to help.
This is the story of Rhiannon Rudd and how a screwdriver, a packet of biscuits, and a man who should have never been there in the first place took her away from her little boy forever. Rhiannon Rudd was 27 years old, a mother, a hotel worker just trying to make it, just trying to provide for her son. She worked at the Park Inn Hotel in Walsall, England, and she'd only been there for 3 months. 3 months. Barely enough time to get comfortable in a job, barely enough time to know everybody's name, and definitely not enough time to see what was coming. Now, this wasn't just any hotel. The Park Inn had been converted into accommodation for asylum seekers, people who came to the UK looking for safety, looking for a fresh start. And Rhiannon, she was one of the staff members tasked with looking after them, making sure they had what they needed, making sure they were comfortable, doing her job with care. One of the people staying at that hotel was a man named Deng Chol-majek. He claimed he was from Sudan, claimed he was 19 years old. But here's the thing, records from Germany suggested he was actually 27, same age as Rhiannon. But nobody knew that for sure at the time, because like a lot of things in this story, the truth was hard to pin down. What we do know is that Majek had arrived in the UK on a small boat. He was living at the Park Inn, being housed there, being fed there, being taken care of there. And Rhiannon was one of the people making sure he had everything he needed. Let me tell you something, Rhiannon wasn't out here being cold or cruel to these folks. By all accounts, she was kind, she was doing her duty. Her family described her as someone who would light up a room. That's the kind of person she was. She had the young son waiting for her at home every night, a little boy who loved his mama, a little boy who didn't know that October 20th would be the last normal day of his life. Now, before we get to what happened that night, we need to talk about the lead up, because this wasn't random. This wasn't some spur of the moment thing. There were signs, there were moments, and people noticed. Earlier that evening during Rhiannon's shift, there was an argument, and you're not going to believe what it was about. Biscuits. Yes, biscuits. Food was being rationed out to the residents at the hotel. Everybody was getting their fair share. But Majek wanted more. He wanted extra biscuits, and when he was told no, he got upset. He argued about it over biscuits. Now, some people might hear that and think, okay, so what? People argue over little things all the time. But here's the thing, it wasn't really about the biscuits. It was about what that argument revealed. It was about entitlement. It was about someone who thought the rules didn't apply to him. Someone who thought he should get whatever he wanted whenever he wanted it. But that argument, that was just the beginning. Throughout the evening, Majek was seen hanging around the reception area, just standing there, just watching. And who was he watching? Rhiannon. Her co-workers noticed it. One of them would later say that it felt like he was planning something. The way he stared at her, the way he just kept his eyes on her as she moved around doing her job. It wasn't casual, it wasn't normal, it was deliberate. Nobody could figure out why. Rhiannon hadn't done anything to him. She hadn't been rude. She hadn't disrespected him. She was just doing her job. But for reasons that nobody understood and for reasons that Majek himself would never explain, he had fixated on her. Rhiannon's shift was supposed to end at 11 p.m. She had a routine. Finish work, walk to Bescott Stadium railway station, catch the train home. Simple. She'd done it before. She'd do it again. Or at least that's what she thought. That night, October 20th, Rhiannon clocked out right on time. 11 p.m., she said her goodbyes, probably tired from the shift, probably thinking about getting home to her son. She grabbed her things and left the hotel on foot. Now, to get to the train station from the Park Inn, you had to cross a car park, walk under a motorway, and then make your way up to the platform. It wasn't a long walk, maybe 10 minutes or so, but it was dark. It was late, and Rhiannon was alone. As she walked through the car park, she pulled out her phone. She was calling one of her best friends, just catching up, just talking like people do. Normal conversation. The kind of conversation that makes a late night walk feel less lonely. She had no idea that 90 seconds behind her, someone else had left the hotel too. The CCTV footage tells the story that Rhiannon couldn't. The cameras caught her walking through the car park, phone to her ear, just living her life. And then 90 seconds later, those same cameras caught Mayek. Same path, same direction, following her. He wasn't rushing, he wasn't running, he was just following, tracking her, keeping his distance but never losing sight of her. And the whole time, Rhiannon had no idea. She was still on the phone with her friend, still talking, still walking, still thinking she was going home. She made her way along the path, went up the stairs, and stepped onto the platform at Bescott Stadium Station. The platform was empty. No other passengers, no staff nearby. Just Rhiannon, her phone, and the train she was waiting for. Majek came up those same stairs moments later. He had a screwdriver in his hand. Rhiannon was still on the phone with her friend when it started. She didn't hear him coming. She didn't see him until it was too late. And when he attacked, he didn't hesitate. He didn't say a word. He just started stabbing. Her friend heard the screams. Not just one scream, but multiple. The kind of screams that make your blood run cold. The kind of screams that tell you something horrible is happening. And there was nothing her friend could do but listen. She couldn't help. She couldn't stop it. She could only hear Rhiannon fighting for her life on the other end of that phone. Majek stabbed her over and over and over again. 23 times. 23 times. Most of the wounds were to her head. He wasn't just trying to hurt her. He was trying to destroy her. 9 of those stab wounds penetrated her skull. 9. One of them went so deep it damaged her brainstem. That's what would ultimately kill her. Rhiannon tried to fight back. The wounds on her left chest and left arm showed that she tried to defend herself. She tried to protect herself. But a screwdriver in the hands of someone that determined, there was no stopping it. When he was done, he just left her there. Left her bleeding on that platform. Didn't call for help. Didn't check if she was still alive. He just walked away. Casual. Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just taken someone's mother away from them. The train that Rhiannon was supposed to catch pulled into the station minutes later. And that's when the train guard found her. Slumped on the platform. Barely conscious. Covered in blood. The guard called for help immediately. Paramedics rushed to the scene. They did everything they could. But the damage was too severe. Rhiannon was taken to the hospital. But she never woke up. She never regained consciousness. For 3 days, her family sat by her bedside, hoping, praying, begging for a miracle. But on the 3rd day, Rhiannon Rudd died. She never made it home to her son. Now, while Rhiannon was fighting for her life in that hospital, police were already moving. Because here's the thing, this wasn't one of those cases where detectives had to piece together a mystery. The evidence was right there, clear as day. Remember that CCTV footage? The cameras had captured everything. They saw Majek staring at Rhiannon throughout the evening at the hotel. They saw him leave 90 seconds after she did. They saw him following her through the car park, under that motorway, all the way to the train station. The footage even caught what he was wearing, a distinctive jacket that made him easy to identify. So when police reviewed those cameras, they knew exactly who they were looking for, and they knew exactly where to find him. Before dawn broke, officers showed up at the Park Inn Hotel. They went straight to Majek's room.
What's your name? On suspicion of attempted murder. Okay. If you're not saying anything, lay on the fence. If you're not mentioning one question or something later on in court.
Police found a jacket and sandals with blood on them. Rhiannon's DNA was found under his fingernails.
The level of brutality there is some of the worst I've seen in my 18 years of service in the police. And it's also of note he's never shown any remorse. So I can only draw my own conclusions that it was a cold-blooded, brutal murder with no explanation.
In the forensic evidence, it was overwhelming. This man had Rhiannon's DNA under his fingernails. Let that sink in. Her DNA was literally embedded under his nails, which meant he'd been in physical contact with her during that attack. She'd fought back, and the evidence of that fight was right there on his hands. But it gets worse. When forensic teams tested his clothing, they found Rhiannon's blood all over it. Not just a little bit, not just a drop or two. We're talking about significant amounts of blood that told the story of just how violent that attack had been. There was a lot of blood, investigators said, because of the vicious nature of the attack. The medical examiner's report painted an even darker picture. Rhiannon had been stabbed 23 times total. Most of those wounds were concentrated on her head. 11 of the stab wounds had penetrated her skull. 11. The force required to puncture someone's skull with a screwdriver, that's not accidental. That's not a momentary lapse. That's rage. That's intent. That's someone who wanted to make absolutely sure their victim didn't survive. One wound in particular had damaged Rhiannon's brainstem, and that's what ultimately caused her death. The brainstem controls all your basic life functions: breathing, heart rate, consciousness. Once that's damaged, there's no coming back. The wounds on Rhiannon's left chest and left arm told investigators that she tried to defend herself. She tried to fight him off. She tried to protect herself, but against someone that determined, someone with a weapon, someone who was attacking with that level of ferocity, she didn't stand a chance. Now here's what made this even more disturbing. After the attack, after leaving Rhiannon to bleed out on that train platform, Majek went back to the hotel. And what did he do? He was seen on camera dancing, laughing, celebrating. Police described him as clearly excited about what he had done. He wasn't hiding, he wasn't panicking, he wasn't showing any remorse whatsoever. He was celebrating like he'd accomplished something. Detectives tried to figure out why. What would motivate someone to do something like this? They looked into Majek's interactions with Rhiannon. They talked to her co-workers. They tried to find some kind of explanation, some incident that would make sense of this senseless violence. And you know what they found? Nothing. There was no particular issue that anyone could recall, no major conflict, no argument beyond that biscuit situation earlier in the evening. Rhiannon hadn't wronged him. She hadn't threatened him. She hadn't done anything to warrant this kind of attack. What was clear from the CCTV, as one prosecutor would later say, was that Mayek had been hanging around the reception area staring at Rhiannon throughout the evening, just watching her, just fixating on her. And then when her shift ended, he made his move. The investigation moved quickly because it didn't need to be complicated. The evidence was there. The suspect was in custody. And the only question left was whether Majek would take responsibility for what he'd done. He wouldn't. Dengchol Majek was formally charged with murder and possession of an offensive weapon. And despite all the evidence, despite the DNA, despite the CCTV footage, despite the blood-soaked clothing, despite being caught red-handed, this man looked investigators in the eye and said, "Not guilty, make it make sense." How do you stab someone 23 times, have their DNA under your fingernails, have their blood all over your clothes, get caught on multiple cameras following them, and then celebrating after the attack, and still have the audacity to claim you didn't do it? But that's exactly what Majek did. He denied everything. When the trial began at Wolverhampton Crown Court, prosecutor M.J. Healy laid out the case. She told the jury exactly what happened. She said he followed her down onto the train platform at Bescott Stadium Station, and then he attacked her, stabbing her over and over with a screwdriver. He left her to bleed to death and then casually went back to his hotel. She told them about the DNA evidence. She told them about the CCTV footage. She told them about the blood on his clothing. She made it clear that there was no question about who had killed Rhiannon Rudd. The only question was whether the jury would hold him accountable. But here's what made the trial even more painful for Rhiannon's family. They had to sit there and listen to every detail of how their daughter, their sister, their loved one had been murdered. They had to hear about the 23 stab wounds. They had to hear about the 9 wounds that penetrated her skull. They had to hear about how she'd tried to fight back. They had to hear about her screams on that phone call. They had to relive the worst moment of their lives over and over again in that courtroom. And through it all, Majek showed nothing. No remorse. No accountability. No explanation. Rhiannon's sister spoke about the pain of having to tell Rhiannon's son what had happened to his mother. She said, "The screams of pain from this beautiful little boy will haunt me for the rest of my life." Just think about that for a moment. A little boy who doesn't understand why his mama isn't coming home. A little boy who has to grow up without her. A little boy whose last memories of normalcy ended the night his mother went to work and never came back. Rhiannon's sister also addressed the fact that throughout the entire trial they'd been given no answers. She said Rhiannon's life was not the only one taken that day, and Majek stole a crucial piece from all of us. Throughout this trial, we have been given no reason as to why he chose Rhiannon, no accountability for his actions, and no remorse.
There is no end to the pain or suffering we've had to endure or continue to experience. On that horrific day, our precious Rhiannon was shown no mercy. Throughout this trial, we have been given no reason as to why he chose Rhiannon, no accountability for his actions, and no remorse. She fought for her life and to save herself from this sick, twisted, and cowardly human.
The defense tried to do what defense attorneys do in cases like this. They looked for any angle they could find. Some people speculated they might claim diminished responsibility, might argue that Majek came from a war-torn country where violence was normalized, might try to paint him as someone who didn't understand what he was doing. But how do you argue that when the cameras show him celebrating afterward, How do you claim diminished responsibility when someone is dancing and laughing after committing murder? How do you ask a jury to show mercy when your client showed none? The trial didn't last long. The evidence was too strong. The facts were too clear. And when the jury came back with their verdict, they found Dungchol Majek guilty of murder. Rhiannon's family gasped. They cried. They held each other. It wasn't closure because nothing could bring Rhiannon back. But it was justice, or at least the beginning of it. After the guilty verdict came down, you'd think that would be the end of it. Case closed, justice served, time to move forward. But no, even sentencing became complicated because remember that age issue we talked about earlier? Majek claimed he was 19 years old. Just 19. But records from Germany, where he'd been before coming to the UK, suggested he was actually 27, the same age as Rhiannon. And because there was this discrepancy, because nobody could definitively prove his real age, the court decided to delay sentencing until December so they could do a proper age assessment. Let me tell you something. That had to be frustrating for Rhiannon's family. They'd already waded through the investigation. They'd already sat through the trial. They'd already heard every horrific detail of how their loved one was murdered. And now they had to wait even longer just to find out how much time this man would serve. All because he might have been lying about how old he was. But while they waited for that formal sentencing, Rhiannon's family made their voices heard. And what they said was powerful. Rhiannon's mother spoke directly to the media, and her words carried the weight of a grief that no parent should ever have to endure. She said, "Life for a life."
Life for a life. None of this deportation. I'm not against asylum seekers, whatever, but he's taken my daughter away. He doesn't deserve to be sent back to his own country. Serve his time here every day of his life.
I don't think there'll ever be enough justice in the world to replace Rhiannon. How could you ever put a timeline on how long someone should be in jail, whether they get to remain in this country or any other country? Rhiannon's life is priceless.
Yeah, because we have to learn how to live without her. And he gets to live. And that's not fair.
But we will keep Rhiannon's memory alive. This case is not the last you'll hear of Rhiannon. There is a lot we have planned as a family. We hold memorials. We do a lot together to keep Rhiannon's memory alive.
Keep saying her name.
Her anger wasn't about where Majek came from. She said she wasn't against asylum seekers in general. This wasn't about immigration politics or xenophobia or any of that. This was about one specific man who took one specific life, her daughter's life. What she was demanding was accountability, real accountability, because there was concern that after serving whatever sentence he got, Majek might be deported back to Sudan. And in her mind, in the minds of many people following this case, that felt like an escape. Like he'd serve some time and then get sent back to his country, far away from the grave of the woman he murdered, far away from the little boy who would grow up without a mother. She wanted him to serve his time in the UK, every single day of it, in the same country where he committed his crime, in the same country where Rhiannon's family would have to live with their grief every single day. She wanted that weight to stay with him. She wanted him to feel the consequence of what he'd done, not thousands of miles away, but right there. The Home Office responded to questions about Majek's immigration status, though they wouldn't comment on his specific case. What they did say was that Their aim is to deport any foreign national who commits a crime in the UK. Standard policy. But whether that would actually happen in this case, whether Majek would eventually be sent back to Sudan after serving his sentence, that remained to be seen. And that choice, that decision to deny everything despite overwhelming evidence, revealed exactly who he was. Someone with no remorse, someone with no empathy, someone who thought only of himself, even after taking someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's sister, away from the people who loved her. Rhiannon Rudd was 27 years old when she died. She had her whole life ahead of her. She had a son who needed her. She had a family who loved her. She had friends who cherished her. And all of that was taken away on a train platform over nothing, no reason, no explanation, no justification. Her family said that Rhiannon would have wanted them to stay strong for each other. That's the kind of person she was. Even in death, even in tragedy, she would have thought about the people she left behind. She would have wanted them to hold on to each other and keep going. But strength doesn't erase pain. Staying strong doesn't bring someone back. And while Rhiannon's family tries to move forward, they have to do it without her. Her son has to grow up without his mother. Her parents have to live with the loss of their daughter. Her sister has to carry the memory of those screams from that beautiful little boy when he learned his mama wasn't coming home. This case raises questions that don't have easy answers. Questions about how asylum seekers are vetted. Questions about how they're monitored while living in communities. Questions about what red flags might have been missed before Majek attacked Rhiannon. But those are systemic questions, policy questions, questions for governments and officials to grapple with. For Rhiannon's family, the only question that matters is one that will never be answered. Why? Why that night? Why did Majek fixate on her? Why did he follow her? Why did he attack her with such ferocity? And the silence in response to those questions is deafening. What happened to Rhiannon Rudd is a reminder that evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's just someone staring a little too long. Sometimes it's just someone following a little too close. Sometimes it's just someone who decides that another person's life means nothing. Rhiannon went to work that night to help people. She was doing a job that required compassion and patience. She was caring for individuals who needed support. And one of those individuals decided to take everything from her. Her family is still waiting for full justice, still waiting for sentencing, still waiting to see if the man who murdered their loved one will spend his life in prison or if he'll eventually be sent back to the country he came from. Still waiting to see if life for a life, as Rhiannon's mother demanded, actually means something in the justice system. But one thing is certain, Rhiannon Rudd will not be forgotten. Her son will remember her, her family will honor her, and her story will stand as a testament to a life that mattered, a life that was stolen, and a family that refuses to let her memory fade. Rest in peace, Rhiannon. This has been Behind Dark Crime. If this story impacted you, if it made you think, if it made you feel something, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We cover cases like this, cases that need to be told, cases where the victims deserve to be remembered. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And until next time, stay safe out there.